So I get to work with Calvin and his team in the partnership that we have with Sephora. So I'm really excited today to introduce Calvin. Really what we do at Sephora, I always say it's a lot of fun, but we get to teach our clients every single day. So I thought what I'd do is take just a quick moment to kind of teach you a little bit about Sephora and a little bit about Calvin. So first thing, Sephora is actually known as the #1 global beauty concept. It's pretty impressive when you think of the far-reaching ideas and what Sephora represents. It was really funny because when I was first telling my husband, I was like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to work on Sephora inside JCPenney. And this is #1, what I get for talking to him in the middle of a Cowboys game. Because it took him a couple seconds, and he was like, why would JCPenney be partnering with Japanese beer? I was like, no. Let me explain this to you. So not everybody knows that, and I've had to help my husband a long way to get used to that. But now he has very specific products that he does love. So Sephora is actually owned by LVMH, which we all know is the luxury brand retailer, known as really the leader in luxury brands. But Sephora is really regarded as what we call a beauty trailblazer. The innovation that we talk about in products and brands and everything that everybody's talked about, it's really at the core of what we do every single day. We have an unparalleled assortment of prestige products, and really probably the industry-leading Beauty Insider loyalty program. So who in here is a Beauty Insider? That's right. Who in here is a Rouge? That's right. I've even got my husband understanding the Rouge program, people. But we know what it is about to have client loyalty, and we really build that in our stores each and every day. And it comes from sitting down with the client and explaining to her how all of it works, because it can be very intimidating when you walk into a store and you don't know anything about it. So whether it's through beauty classes, whether it's through what we call mini makeovers, it's kind of teaching her and educating her along the way. And when you have that, you drive the loyalty for that. As I always say every day, we talk about it, our motto is play and have fun, because it is. I mean, any lady who's ever been there, it's like a candy store. We have stuff for men too, but it is like a candy store for most women. But it is all about coming in and playing and have fun. Because there is no cooler job in the world than to get to sit down and be with a client and let them leave feeling more beautiful than they did when they came in. Nothing is better than that. So really through all of those reasons is why Sephora has actually emerged this past year as the #1 market share leader in prestige beauty. So it's been a huge hurdle to get to. We've had some amazing seasons together, both of us, with Calvin. But speaking of Calvin really did become the CEO here for Sephora in January of 2014. So there's all of his bios in there. I would say it's incredibly interesting. And Calvin recently came to us as from the CEO of Sears Canada, but also spent over 18 years with Loblaw, which is Canada's largest food retailer. So in addition, I would say a little bit of going back to the education, a little bit about Calvin, which you probably know when you'll see him, but Calvin actually, other than just running Sephora, he also runs marathons and triathlons. So to a lot of us, he's kind of like Superman, but with a little bit of twist of kind of being a beauty junkie all at the same time. So anyway, it is my great pleasure to introduce your final speaker between you and your flight or happy hour or whatever it may be, Mr. Calvin McDonald.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Global Retail Conference and Terry for inviting me today to have the opportunity to come and share a little bit of our story with you. I'd also like raise show of hands. Are there students still left in the room? Yeah? And I hope all your hands were up for being a beauty insider, right? Including the guys. Right? I mean, come on, guys. It's okay. We need skincare and use fragrance as well. You know, what an exciting time to be, you know, in retail, to be considering to enter retail, because it really is the most exciting time in our industry's history because of the pace of change and really the role that innovation is going to play in the future. So, my name's Calvin, and I have the good fortune of being the President and CEO of Sephora Americas, which I joined just over a year ago. And Sephora, I can tell you, has been you know, an incredible journey. It's an incredible retailer filled with incredible individuals. And I am a retailer. I've spent my entire career in retail, and I absolutely love it. And I love it really for three primary reasons. I enjoy working with people, I love product, and I love to innovate. And if you love those three things, there's not a better industry to be in, and something to strongly consider. But today in particular, I thought I would pull out innovation, and I would talk to Sephora's innovation DNA. And what is it that makes Sephora drive the way it does, and fortunately see the success it sees through innovation as a retailer? So innovate or die. Conventional wisdom. We've all heard the statements. It's because change is happening at an unprecedented rate in retail. And if you don't like change, you're going to like being irrelevant even less. But the inconvenient truth of the matter is you can innovate and still die. The gap between those that have and those that have not in the retail industry is growing. So why is it that some retailers see success while others fail? It's simply not enough to innovate. My assertion, what I believe I've seen through my career in retail, is that innovation must be in the DNA of the organization. It must be core. It must be what matters if you truly are going to see success. And the challenge is, most of retailers aren't wired that way. Big retailers, there are some, but most retailers are not wired to put innovation truly at the core of their organization. They spend 80% of their time managing through the rearview mirror. Their approach to innovation is wash, rinse, and repeat. And both the values and how they hire put knowledge before imagination. Sephora has been touted as one of the most innovative retailers, one of the most innovative beauty retailers in the world. And it might come across as cocky, and I hope it doesn't. We're proud, we're confident, and we actually don't do a lot of bragging. It's rare for me to be up here. It's rare for LVMH to allow me to get up here. And that's because we just focus on what we do. We focus on delivering and servicing the client, and we're focusing on driving what is core to who we are and what drives us and brings that passion every day. So what is Sephora's innovation DNA? The first is, and you really have to look and understand the history, in particular of Sephora in the United States, to really understand the first core of our DNA. And that is this notion of disruption and how we got the spirit through the need to survive. So 1998, Sephora came to the United States, and it came with what was a disruptive model. We broke the glass counter of beauty, what was traditionally in department stores. We positioned ourselves as being brand agnostic. Clients could come in, they could cut across brands. Our cast would be able to service them. What brand is right for you? It's not the brand that I work for, it's not the brand that's paying me, and it's not the brand that I'm getting commission from. It's clearly focused on the client and what's the right product and being able to service them. That was the model. And we were pumped, we were disruptive. One problem. Brands didn't want to come with us. They didn't want to play. The incumbent brands didn't want to disrupt their own model, their own way in which they were going to market through department stores, a more traditional way. So we had a choice. We knew we wanted to be first, we knew we wanted to be different, and we knew we wanted to be unique. That's what drove disruption at Sephora. That's when we say, what does it mean to disrupt? Those are the three things that it means. And that's what drives us. But we had a problem. So the first thing we had to solve was really to be or not to be. We needed to survive, because you can't have a store and a concept and not product to sell. So we had to think differently. Survival. The power of that instinct early on in our history was cemented and really drove how we thought to survive. What were we going to do to continue to disrupt? And for those of you who heard Ali speak yesterday, it's an example of where we look to. If we can't work with the Lauders and the L'Oreals of the world, if they're not going to sell us the brands that we need to service our client, then we'll go out and we'll build and develop new brands. We'll go out and find the brands that don't have a stage to sell their product, that don't have an opportunity to reach out to the clients. And we built indie brands. We built some of the most powerful indie brands today. And over the last year, some of them are being acquired by the Lauders and the L'Oreals. We've worked with founders like Ali. We brought these businesses, and that allowed us to overcome the fundamental issue, which is we didn't have product to sell. We also got that through this notion of Fight Club. That's an attitude. That's a notion that we're going to do what we need to do to win. And that is embedded in the cast that we have today, all 12,000 of them. And a few of them are here today, Rachel and Charlotte, and when you're in the stores and you interact with our cast, or if you're at our FSC, you'll realize that this notion to fight, to disrupt, and to survive is who we are. It's who we hire, and it is really core to what drives a big piece of Sephora. And it's come from the instinct to survive and that attitude to disrupt. And what's interestingly, in doing this, we set out to disrupt an industry. We did. But because the industry didn't embrace us in the way in which we were attempting to disrupt, we in fact disrupted it even more. Because we created indie brands. Half of our business, half of our sales come from brands that are exclusive and limited to Sephora. That's power. And that would never have been if we didn't need to survive and fight and think about how we're going to disrupt. The second in the DNA, innovation DNA at Sephora, is the never stop culture. We compete against ourselves. And this is why I can tell you, there is no arrogance at Sephora. We're proud, we're confident, and there will never be complacency at Sephora because we're always competing against ourselves. We're not happy the day we do things. We get accolades, everybody loves it, the clients, we're already thinking about, it's not good enough, how can we make it better? How can we enhance the client experience? Compete against ourselves. We're hungry for ideas. We are obsessed around the client. How can we continue to enhance that beauty experience? Beauty retail is the best form of retail because you can connect on so many different elements, right? Fantastic product. Half of our product sales today, it didn't even exist 2 years ago. There's not another industry in retail that turns over to that degree. We sell over 6,000 SKUs in our stores, and 3,000 of them didn't even exist. We sit here today and think forward. I'm going through a 3-year strat plan, and I'm putting sales on a piece of paper, and half of the product hasn't even been put in the hands in front of the client. I mean, that is so incredibly unique and powerful. And the passion of the beauty junkies, the love that they have for the product, the need they have for the product, how they want to sell, tell, and learn, the ability to connect on so many different elements, and client is really core to how we think about that. And we're also willing to eat our own lunch. Because you compete against yourselves, you don't sit back on your laurels. And a few years ago, we introduced a love metric. We wanted to really start to gauge and understand how much our clients truly love Sephora. Because we believed one of the best ways to loyalty was through her heart. And if we really understood, do they love Sephora? And can we measure this? And can we monitor it over time? The things we do, if we can build on love, we will build on loyalty, and we will build strength in our business. So we do things that we believe will pay out on a return on love and not necessarily return on investment. We are very fiscally responsible. The group makes sure of that. But you do sometimes bet on ideas that you believe will drive the love of the client. And what we find is that very quickly you get an ROI. We launched the beauty studio. We didn't have to launch the beauty studio. The beauty studio is where you sit down and our cast actually apply the product. We had great productivity, taking space out to put in a few seats to sit clients down instead of allow them to shop. Didn't have a great ROI when we first looked at the concept. Cast didn't want to do it. We want to sell. What are we doing? Sitting down, selling and talking to clients in this fashion. Let's do it the traditional way. But we were focused on if we touch the client, if we open up an exchange in which we can service her, she can learn, she'll love us more. And we have gone over the last few years from 2-seat beauty studios to 6-seat beauty studios. They now represent a significant portion of our total sales are derived through the beauty studio. And our recent concept is going to have up to 16 seats in the beauty studio. And we now launch beauty classes and operate beauty classes in store while the store is in operation. All through this notion of an idea that would never have gone forward if it was evaluated purely on ROI, but did go forward because it was evaluated on this notion of return on love. And that's what's competing against yourself is all about, how you continue to push forward ideas and concepts. In addition to never stop culture is to strike that balance between evolution and revolution. What good retailers do is they clearly know what their strategic pillars are. These are our strengths. These are the 5 things that we do that differentiate us, that we can win on, and they evolve those. And that's good. What great retailers do is, in addition to that activity, they pick a handful of game changers, and they say to themselves, let's go out and create a revolution. Let's create something fundamentally new. Let's completely change the industry, and they do both. That's what great retailers do. And at Sephora, we're constantly balancing between what are we evolving and what are we going to revolutionize? What's the next big game change? We did it a few years ago with our digital.com site. And today, it is one that is considered one of the strongest in the industry, winning Genius status 2 years in a row, combining both commerce with information, with that client experience. So important that you consider and look at both. But this never stop culture is what, once it's in our core, how we continue to drive it. And being action-oriented. Learn fast, fail fast, and move on fast. One of the things I love about Sephora is it's great. You can sit there and you can talk, and maybe because it's an environment which you're always thinking out, you wonder, boy, how do you get everything done? We get shit done. First acronym I ever learned when I joined Sephora, GSD. I'm like, what is this? They're like, well, can we tell the new guy what GSD is? Get shit done. We are results focused. You talk to anybody in our stores, they have more stats than any other retailer in terms of how their performance is. But we focus on, we want to test, we want to learn, we're okay with failing, but when we fail, we want to move on. And we failed. You don't innovate, you don't create those game changers if you're not willing to fail and if you don't stand up and say, yeah, we've had a lot of failures. But we learn through every failure we've done. Nail Studio. We had a PlayStation. It integrated technology with this concept and idea that, we know she loves to play. It's a big part of Sephora in-store experience. And Nail was hot a few years ago, and we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we created designated PlayStations for Nail, where she comes in, and we have iPads, and we have looks. She can scan through the looks, can bring the product, and play. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to be told what to put on her nails. But we learned from that. We adjust. How do we think of play? So you have to be action-oriented. You have to be focused on results. But you have to be okay to fail. But learning is probably the most important word on this paper when you innovate, because you're going to have failures, you're going to have successes. You need to know why so that you can apply that to how you're thinking moving forward. So the innovation at Sephora is really disrupt to survive. It came from our history. It's rooted in what we needed to do to survive, that instinct and the attitude that was created, this notion of disruption, how we want to be first, how we want to be different, and how we want to be unique. That's what we think about all the time. That led to this general notion of never stop culture. We will never stop innovating. It is who we are. We compete against ourselves. If we don't feel the competition's moving in the right direction, it doesn't matter. We're competing against ourselves. We look inward, we look to the client, and we keep pushing what we're doing to get stronger and better. And in doing so, we're always striking that balance between what we evolve and where we're going to bet big to start a revolution. And action-oriented. At the end of the day, you got to get shit done. And we are a results-focused organization that gets stuff done. One of the questions that, I challenge myself and my leadership team, though, is how will we continue to sustain this innovation DNA? It's great to say, sort of the how it came about. We're a young organization in the Americas. We're 16 years old. We've seen great success. How do you continue to bring that as new cast members join the stores, as new members join the FSC? I mean, as leaders, that's one of the most important things we need to do. One is, how do we create a culture? But if we have a culture of innovation, how do you maintain it? And we constantly look at how we innovate. Innovate how we innovate. And what I would tell you, and you've heard from multiple players, this notion of an innovation lab. And yes, we have one. We think it's pretty cool. And it spits out some pretty cool initiatives. I think Margot yesterday shared with you the contouring app that we launched a few months ago. We've just launched an augmented reality app for our Made with Love animation, which showcases our founders, like Ali. So constantly testing and pushing technology and learning to see where's that connection between the client and the role that digital plays to make it purposeful, as you heard earlier. But remember, innovation is who we are. It's at our core. And one of the things we've done over the last year is I want to hear from all Sephora cast members and have all Sephora cast members play a role in innovation. We have 12,000. They all have wonderful ideas. They all come to Sephora because they have a passion for beauty, because they have a passion for retail, and they love the spirit of Sephora. So let's hear from them. So we've launched many initiatives, and I think this is what's unique to us. We have kicked off a think tank, which is how we develop tomorrow's innovators today. So people across the organization actually join a group that has the ability to train and learn through guest speakers and other exercises, really understand what does it mean to innovate? How should I think about innovation? How do I take ideas? Monsieur Arnaud, just last week talked about, and he talks about this a lot, and he's one of the most creative individuals that I've met, and he completely appreciates it. But even he talks about pragmatic creativity, right? Critical that we teach tomorrow's innovators within Sephora how to think that way. So we have this, and they come up with a variety of ideas, and we have seed money put together, and we bet on it. But that's how you create and educate and develop. We also have Think Tank Idea Central. It's an ability for every cast member across the entire network of stores to share ideas. In each other, they vote on those ideas. And great ideas bobble to the top, and they get deployed and rolled into the organization. Hackathons. We have an idea. Let's get a bunch of groups together. Brown bag lunch. Let's hear, solve it. Everybody owns innovation at Sephora, and that's a big part of the culture. So we're deliberately creating our future every day. While other retailers spend 80% of their time managing through the rearview mirror, we try to spend 80% of our time looking forward to the future. While others value and hire on knowledge, we value and hire on imagination. You know who else thought that way? Albert Einstein. Famous quote from him. And as a result of that approach, we hope that we have a constant flow of great ideas. And obviously, we're in the beauty industry, so an infinite color shades of lip gloss always help as well. So with that, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you innovation at Sephora. And I'll take any questions. Yes?
As the marketer in the room mentioned return on love. Curious How do you measure return on love?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a medallion system that is constantly getting feedback from the client, where she tells us, sort of where Sephora ranks in terms of her most loved beauty retailer. And we can assign that to particular initiatives and experiences that she's had in the store. So we know, for instance, we launched a brand-agnostic brow service in our Lexington store in New York, which is a test for us. The only brand-agnostic brow studio in the industry. You either go to Anastasia brow bars or you go to Benefit brow bars. And being core to who we are, brand agnostic, we wanted to test to see, can we bring a differentiated experience to it? So we launched it. ROI would be not great, but we believe the return on love would be very strong. Through this system, we can determine those that sit down and get a brow studio, how is their love score, and how does that compare to the average love within that store? And it's a bit of a bet. It's, do they have a higher love? Do we see the business eventually closing the gap if there is a negative ROI? But we absolutely attach the attributes of the product too. We do bet. At some point, if love's high, finance is low, and it's not scalable, we reevaluate it. But we do go in with this notion of, if it drives a higher love and we can record it, we go.
But when people go get capital, is that on the list? You know what I mean?
Will they?
I'm just
when
saying,
they ask?
is your core metric, is it your scorecard that you look at as a CEO and you go to a capital meeting and the return on love is through the roof?
There is a portion of our CapEx that absolutely we put to projects that score low on an ROI.
Hi, Nishant from Nike. You mentioned that half of the brands available in Sephora are exclusive to Sephora. What % of sales do they contribute to? And do you foresee that percentage going up or down in the near future, and why?
Sorry, I got the question on the exclusive and limited. What was, and do I see it up in the
do you see that percentage increasing or decreasing in the future?
Sorry, thank you.
And why?
They've been increasing. And I think they've been increasing for a variety of reasons. One, a lot of these indie brands are seeing tremendous success. Glam Glow is a great example of, basically an exclusive brand. Our merchants work with the founders. They are in what we call in the kitchen, developing product with them. We just launched a foaming cleanser, which is completely innovative. That came actually from the Sephora merchant interacting with the product development team. So these businesses have grown. So as a result of their successes, we've seen it as a penetration of our business grow. And over the last 18 months have continued to sort of put on the type of pace of growth that we're very happy about. What we know at Sephora is we have a very unique beauty client. And she expects and wants what's new. She expects and wants the trend. And what potentially sells well in other channels will not do as well with us. Some of the traditional incumbent brands don't perform well at Sephora. And it really is because our client's coming in and she's looking for new, she's looking for trend, and she's looking for what's hot. And a lot of these indie brands right now in color in particular are very hot. Their businesses are growing significantly, and as a result, we're benefiting from it. And I don't see that changing in the future. I mean, one of the challenges that we talk about as a team is you basically have to assume, and we're seeing it through the last 12 months, is that we work and incubate, and there's a general life cycle, which is at some point these brands will grow, they'll get larger, they'll want to increase their distribution, they'll get acquired by somebody else, and then we move back to another cycle. Our opportunity and challenge is, how do we delay that? How do we work with the founders to give them growth within Sephora globally, so that we maintain that exclusive and limited? And what are we doing to incubate the brands in behind, so that we're not surprised the day in which a particular brand elects to go and broaden their distribution in order to get growth? So it is one of the things that our merchants obsess about. It's one of the things that is core to who we are, this differentiated product. And we're constantly, nurturing and building it. One of the hottest brands right now in beauty in the United States is the Kat Von D line. And it's exclusive and actually was created at Sephora. True story. The chief merchant, Margarita, who's just, she's fantastic and just recently retired, but she was so convinced that this would be a hot product that she had to go, and she couldn't get an appointment with Kat, so she had to go to LA, line up outside her tattoo parlor, 3 in the morning, to get in to see Kat, to picture the concept. And today it's the fastest growing brand. So when I talk about what does innovation mean at Sephora, it's hard sometimes to put into words this notion of disruption, the survival core to who we are. It's a fascinating story, and there's many of them, but I think it's going to continue to grow. We have multiple brands that we're incubating in behind the ones we have today, and it's who we are, and it's what drives us. Yes?
Microphone, let's start. So when you think about innovation, I don't know why I did that. So when you think about investing in innovation, you have this amazing lab, which is fabled in the Bay Area, by the way. Like, everyone knows about it. How do you decide how to divvy up the investment in that? You have the 2 buckets of your product innovation, which is obviously so core, and then the tech side, which is obviously so core to the geography. How do you think about divvying that up, and how do you direct that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would tell you, if I had a list of the things at Sephora that were opportunities for us, prioritizing some of our great ideas is one of them. When you have a culture that you try to put imagination, its very nature will create a ton of ideas, and prioritizing those ideas is very difficult. How we try to do it, and there's always a few that you bet on that are separate, is we really try to align what are the big game changers. So we have our core pillars. We know that product is a core pillar for us. We know that our beauty experience is a core pillar for us. We know that digital is a core pillar for us, and our loyalty and marketing, and people. Those aren't different than what you hear most other retailers talk about, and we're constantly evolving those efforts, and there's a lot of exciting things happening. But what we try to do is say, what are the game changers? What are we going to do to fundamentally transform our industry and have the biggest impact, the revolution? And that's where we try to align a lot of the imagination ideas behind. And there might be a few things, but I would tell you there is an attempt through the game changers, and we have 4, to really support. And if there's a few others, we probably support as well. But that is an attempt. It's not easy. And you always want to do more than you can, and capabilities are tough. Back to my, why I love retail, people, product, innovation, the role that people play, it's probably the one thing that keeps me up at night. How do you continue to get the best talent, and how do you continue to retain the best talent? Because that's really what is standing between us and maintaining the success we're on, because we're so excited about what we're doing. But prioritization is a big one. Great question. Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it, and thank you.